Okay, here we go. Some more techniques in watercolor. These are the ones we just finished, and I'm sure that y'all's look better than mine. I have dry brush, spatter or stippling, scraping, which mine doesn't look like much here, but I do have other examples that are amazing, and I've buried them somewhere in here, but I will show them at another time, and I'm sure you guys have some pretty amazing ones. This was lifting, and remember we had difficulty with lifting. I was struggling, and it did not want to lift much, but sometimes I get lucky, and those often come out nice. So I imagine in the process of doing these, you encountered, well, that didn't go well, and that is typical. And down here, we have the blotting additive, and this was my subtractive, and I did it in green, and then I tried again in purple over the green, which is a really beautiful glazing, but once again, not much success. So these processes, you're going to have to practice them a lot, and it has been a while since I did these, so it's like asking for trouble to just jump in there without practicing prior to making an example. So here I go again. Okay, so we've got bruising. Bruising is kind of fun. This is the end result. Let's see if I can get close enough. You can see those swirls. That's what I drew on the paper. And I basically bruised the paper, and that is a varied wash. Here's another example of bruising the paper. Okay, and let's do it. All right, so I do have some things out here, as you can see. I've got the liquid frisket, which we're going to be using. That one right there, you could go to Michael's and get it. I'm not going to require it. It's just a wonderful material. You can use a substitute, which is rubber cement, and that's what I was taught when I was very young. That's what I used for many, many years until I found the liquid frisket. So rubber cement, if you got some of that, that'll work. I also have a stylist here. It's a tool used. You do not want to ever use a paintbrush with that liquid frisket. It will destroy your paintbrush. So you usually want to play with some kind of a stick. And this is a stylist, which basically has a ball on either end, and it allows for you to draw with it. And that's basically Scotch tape. In this case, it's Artist low-tack tape, and we're going to use it for masking. And then we have some table salt, which is something we will use, and some crayons. All right, so let's get started here. We're going to start with bruising. So I've got, let's see, what do I want to do? I want to do something intense. Let's do purple. And notice, you know, I always like to go out of my container and put my color in my palette because it allows me to have more control. Well, as much as control as I can get with watercolor, which is pretty crazy stuff. And you can do it wet on wet or wet on dry. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to do a little bit of water here so you can see color going on. And that's just very watery. And then I'm going to just draw over it here. And let's say you've done a painting and there's a couple things that we're going to use this for, but you could do something like, you could write your name in it. So basically you can draw, and I like spirals, so I'm kind of fond of spirals. So you could draw, and basically what you're doing is you're bruising the paper, you're pressing down into the paper, like just a bruise. But you don't want to rip the paper. So I'm using the stylus because I know it won't rip the paper. You can also use the back of your paintbrush. Preferably a smaller one than this, but that's okay. It'll work just as well. Okay, so now I've bruised the paper. And you can see that wherever you bruised, that's where the color goes down into. So you can write your name and it will go right down into that bruised area. All right, that's bruising. It's pretty easy. We are going to use it for a specific project, so know it, understand it. Masking. So now we have masking tape, and you can do a lot with tape. You could just tape down an area. You could cut out shapes. Another one of my favorite things to mask with are Post-it notes, because they already have the sticky added to them. So you can use Post-it notes. I've been known to use those to mask off areas. Right now I'm just cutting this tape up and laying it down. Not worried about the little rough area that was caused from, I'll just put this guy down. So that's just masking it with tape. And the other day when I did the stippling, this one, you remember I laid the paper on it and I masked out the area so that I could stipple and not have it go everywhere. I still went everywhere, but not as bad. And you can usually control that way. Okay, so now we've masked it with masking tape. You can use masking tape, you can use this low-tack tape. This is actually the same kind of low-tack tape cut into a circle. And I just wanted to show you that you can do, a lot of times people don't think about the fact that they could have color down already and then mask off an area. So they always think, oh, I gotta have a white paper behind it, but you do not. So you could mask off an area and pretend I'm doing a really good job and there's a purpose to what I'm making. And hang on. I'll blot it a little bit so I don't get my hands all nasty. And then I'm just going to peel that tape. And you can see where I had it, and it still snuck under because that's been sitting for well over a year taped on there. Wait a minute. No, that's not. Hang on. Bear with me a minute. Ta-da! That was the other side of the tape. Okay. Gosh, you know, it's been a while when I just can't remember what I did. But that was from last year when I taped it off and then never used it. All right, that's masking. Don't forget, though, you can paint an area, mask it, paint over it again. So here we are with the white mask on top of it. And I am going to go with purple again. You know what would be cool? Let's do a varied. Just keep it interesting. Get this color out of here. I stole the red over there. And maybe I'll get lucky and it won't go under the tape. There's always a hope. Tape hasn't always been my friend. We'll see. And you can use just regular masking tape. I would advise you not to leave it though, because if you leave the masking tape for very long, masking tape has a tendency to leave a sticky residue behind. You know, the yellow masking tape. A good blue artist tape is helpful, but it also will leave a sticky residue. And now I'm going to do lifting so I don't have to wait forever. Let me pull off some of this water. I know some of you, I could tell that you hadn't played with too much lifting in some of your areas because in the examples shown, I could tell you just left it puddling, which is okay. That's fun because you have, you know, as long as you're not trying to do lifting, you can do it. You can leave it. And I left puddle over here and it's already drying out and showing up nicely. Now I'm going to jump over to this liquid frisk. Now I went ahead and did this stuff because I wanted you to see what it looks like when it's dry. It's slightly yellowed. If you leave it on there, it will yellow the paper. So when I learned that the hard way. I had a really nice drawing I was very happy with, going well. I walked away from it. Something happened. I walked away from it. Came back a few months later, and when I peeled off, I did finish the picture. When I peeled it off, it had left a yellow residue. So it will cause some yellowing of the paper if you leave it on for months. But if you pretty much, after it's dry, take it off, then it's fine usually. All right, this one I did do an eye, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do, let's see, I was going to do an eye here, so let's see. Some brown. And I just drew the eye. And I masked where I wanted it to be masked. And boy, I bet some of y'all are already going, gosh, I would have done something different. I'd have done this, and I'd have done that. And I love that. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be looking at what's happening here and going, I want to try this. That's what I'm looking to get you guys to do. Start experimenting, exploring color, not being afraid to do some interesting things. And I'm playing with the idea of someone who's got green eyes, slight brown in them, or brown with slight green in it. Okay, so I got that, and now I'm going to daringly put some, and this is also a very daring thing to do, put the black in there while it's still wet. That's like asking for trouble, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because what happens if it bleeds out? Sometimes I get lucky, sometimes I don't. You don't know, it can happen. Make my light, let's see, make me a little light skin. Touch of yellow. Touch of blue. It looks brown. But that's okay. Again, we're experimenting, we're playing, we're not afraid, because what can you do? You can go back in and play with it. Or you can do it again. Okay, put a little shadow under here, just to make her look good there. And my dog is snoring again. For some reason he likes it when I paint. Seems to just knock him right out. Alright. Over here, where I put the frisket, now this is what you're doing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to open it up. Now this stuff really stinks, and it's highly expensive. This right here, this container is $15 worth. So I'm usually pretty ornery about how it's taken care of. I am going to show you by just putting a couple of dots. That's the way you would do it. However, right now, when I put this on here, it's wet. It dries fairly quickly, but I cannot wash over that right now while it's wet. So I've got to wait on that. I've got to wait on that frisket right there. But it dries fairly quickly, so I can show you. It comes right off of this, but it will not come out of your brush bristles. It'll destroy your brush out of that stylus. Alright, and this one is dry over here, so I am going to go ahead and grab this purple and go for it. And I just want to wash over what has already been done, just like I did the eye. This has all been dried. Now, the only problem is I cannot peel this at all right now, not until tomorrow. So do not get in a hurry. Even if this seems dry, I would say do not peel it until like hours later, because it will rip your paper. But if you wait, it works out pretty cool. I'm doing another. I like the varied washes. I think they're pretty. Alright, and I'm allowing them to bleed into each other, which is another word we can play with. Alright, now there's liquid masking or frisket, and again, you can use rubber cement. That's easily found. They have it at Walmart. I've seen it before. The masking tape is fairly dry over here, so I'm going to peel it. And again, I can show you that masking doesn't always work for me. And as you can see, it's kind of snuck under. It's kind of a neat effect, though. As long as you don't get stressed by the fact that it just snuck under. Kind of expect it, and then when it doesn't, you can be like, woohoo, I win. It's awful wet to be peeling this, but this tape will come up without damage. The only problem is very likely I am going to damage the paper with my nails trying to get it up. Very likely. I managed. Yay. So that's masking tape, any kind of tape. This is just happens to be low tack artist tape. And if I had done a better job, and it does matter that the paper itself has texture to it, and so it's sneaking into that texture. But I bet those of you who are using copy paper, that won't happen. And then I have salt, and I want to try salt here. Salt is one of my nemesises. It doesn't always go well for me, and I'm going to do it in front of y'all. And I'm sure that most of you will have no problems with salt. However, I probably will. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, and I'm really grabbing a lot of color here. I'm trying to get a lot of color. I want it like a lot. I got black. I'm obviously into purple tonight. I'm going to go over here and grab some of my red and let those two kind of, ooh, it's bursting together. Ooh, I like that. I like when that happens. Let me see if I can get it to do it some more. Bursting into each other. Okay, one of the problems that I have is I am kind of slow, I think. I think maybe the fact that I like to mess around with the paper and the paint and just kind of do that I end up having problems. But this is very wet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take salt, that up a little bit. I'm going to put it in my hand, and then I'm going to pinch it and control how much goes on this. So I'm just going to basically kind of drop it on. And like I said, I think I just mess around too much sometimes. And I don't get it on there when it should be wet. See, that's dried up a little bit. That might not react. Now, the problem with a lot of these techniques is you can't always see it when you do it. And so you'll look at it and go, oh, that doesn't look like it's doing anything. Maybe I should mess with it some. Don't. Learn to leave it alone, which is something I have trouble with. But we're going to make an effort. I'm not going to look at it anymore. That's why I did it next. I do want to show you a salt pattern that is finished. So this is dried salt, and it really does some beautiful crystal looking kind of things going on there. Try to hold it still. Let's see what the other one on the other side. This is what happens when you get too much salt. If you get too much salt in an area, you're going to have like it's almost a texture in itself, because you like visually and figuratively, you're going to have salt stuck to it. Here's another one that came out pretty nice. Right there. That's a pretty good looking one. Okay, now we have to leave it alone. So I can't touch it. I can't mess with it. I can't add water. I can't do anything to it. So I'm going to walk away now. Don't look. And I'm going to look at the crayon resist. Now, crayon resist is absolutely one of my favorite things to do. I don't know whether it came from just being little and being able to play with crayons and break them in half, and I like to rub them on their side and just make a big mess with them. But I did go ahead and throw some on here because I didn't want to waste all your time watching me color. And I have white all around the outer edge, which you can't see right now. And by the way, if you have a little brother or sister and you want to do something fun with them, you could draw a picture using the white crayon that they can't see on the paper, and then let them paint it, and then magically there's a design, and they feel like, woohoo, they've done something cool, and they have. But it just gives them a little bit of surprise. Alright, so I'm just going to wash this dark color that I have a massive amount of over the top of the crayon. And what I love about crayon resist is you have instant just wow. wow factor. And look at how that white is showing up and you didn't see it there. Now, most of the time with crayons, I will do a crayon rubbing. If you had Art 1 with me, we did crayon rubbings. So we experimented with rubbing the crayon. Here's some examples of that. So that's like taking a pattern and rubbing over the pattern and then washing over that. There's like 3 different patterns here. Here's one. Designs. It's a little interesting one. This one had butterflies. I think it was just like a shoe pattern or something. Okay, so crayon resist. That one may just play and have fun. So we got bruising, masking, liquid mask, salt, and crayon resist. You won't get to see the final work here until it's dry, which I'll show you next time, and you'll get to see on your own. And then again, if you decide to do the rubber cement, or if you can afford to go and get some liquid Frisket, do it. This is not required, but if you can, try it. Yeah, the rest of it, I think you can handle. Some crayons, some salt. I think we're all good. Maybe some tape. All right, next time, have fun. Okay, next day. All right, here we are the next day, and this is all dry. I've been scraping off the salt. You do want to remove it. I'm just kind of rubbing it off here. It's not there for actual texture, it's there for visual texture. So let's see, we've got, this is the bruising, and I went and played, of course. I'm hoping you guys won't just leave these alone. This is all painted, and that is actually bruised. And there's the masking tape. And then here we are at the liquid mask. And I've got to remove that. So I'm going to rub that off, and you just basically take your finger and rub that off. You can use, it has to be the next day because this has all got to be dry. And if you have a little touch of, you can always erase if you feel like there's something on here you don't want. And then, that's basically it. This is where everything is here that is masked off is now been removed, and everything that was supposed to be white is white. And then here's the salt. Came out pretty cool. I think that I allowed for it to dry a little bit too much before I dropped the salt in that one area. And there's the, oh, I've got it upside down, but it's the crayon resist. Alrighty, well, have fun.